Hi, my name is Palermo with Palermo and Associates, and I'm located in New York, and I'm here today to give you some information on your pressing litigation issues. But first, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. All the links, including my website and information, are all in the description box below. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about your divorce options in light of coronavirus. I know right now, today, it's very hard for a lot of people, especially with the pandemic in full swing. A lot of people are reevaluating their interpersonal relationships and their lives in general, and one of the things people are thinking about or discussing are divorces and separations. So if you're considering that, if that's something that you've been thinking about, this video is for you. So first off, if you're not really ready yet to take that step, or you still want to save your relationship, there is the option of marriage counseling. You can reach out to a counselor. A lot of them are now doing Zoom sessions, and you can see if you can work through your issues that way. If you've tried that and it hasn't worked out and you still want to move forward, or for whatever reason that's not going to work for you, the next option you have is a separation. There's two types of separations. There's a legal separation, or you can just have a separation between the two of you, that you come to an agreement that both of you will live separate and apart. Now, I know when you hear the word separation, a lot of you are concerned and worried about living outside of the home, or having to find a new place, or having to find a new apartment, that you have to physically leave the marital residence. That's not the case. You just have to be living your life separate and apart. It means you have to be living your life separate from your partner, separate from your spouse. So you don't necessarily have to physically leave the marital residence. You can live in the residence and stay in the same house. You just can't be living as husband and wife. So you can either do this with an agreement between the two of you, where you work things out together without an attorney, or you can hire an attorney to draft a legal separation. If you draft a legal separation, in many cases and in many areas, this separation can be included or can be used as a divorce tool. So if you are separated for about a year in New York and you have a separation agreement, that's a legal agreement that's been drafted by someone, or you've drafted properly based on what's necessary, all the requirements are there, then you can actually present that to the judge and be like, we want to get a divorce. We've already worked everything out. And that becomes, instead of just a separation agreement, it becomes an uncontested divorce agreement. So that's one thing you can do. One of the things you should be thinking about, either legal separation or just a discussion between the two of you, are going to be these issues. Income. How are you going to handle income? Are you going to stay together in the same premises, in the same marital residence? If so, how are the sleeping arrangements going to be? Who's going to be sleeping where? How are you going to be handling living with each other? Are you going to be living like roommates? Are bills going to be split halfway? How are you going to deal with that? If there are children involved, are you going to have the kids? Are you going to tell the kids who's going to be taking care of the kids? How will you be splitting the money that needs to go into taking care of these kids? If one person leaves, let's say you do want to leave the residence, you want to find a new place to live, how are you going to do visitation? Will there be visitation? What days will the visitation be? How will those look like? Also, will there be child support? Will the spouse who moves out be providing support to the spouse who's living in the marital residence with the children? How are you going to do that? So those are very important things. Also, you may want to look into how you're going to handle property, your personal property. Who gets what items, what books, what TV, what clothing, who gets what. That's going to be important, especially if one person is leaving the residence. What are they taking with them? What is theirs? Are you going to be opening up separate bank accounts? How is that going to look? So these are all very important things that you need to be discussing when looking at your separation agreement. If you're doing a legal separation agreement, in most cases, you have to have a complete breakdown and complete disclosure of your finances and your assets. So that means bank accounts, assets like stocks, 401k, pensions, your debts. What debts do you owe? What credit cards you have? Is there a mortgage on the house? Do you owe medical bills? All of that. You have to disclose it to both parties. The other issue you can discuss is whether or not maintenance is going to be something that you're going to do. If one person is leaving, if that person, let's say, makes more money than the person staying in the marital residence, is that person going to be paying maintenance to someone? That's something that can be, you don't have to, but that's something that should be discussed as well. It's kind of important to know how you're going to be separating. Now, if you do a separation agreement, obviously no one else is involved, it's just the two of you, and if you hire an attorney, the attorney, which is really nice for a lot of people, especially if this is something that they're just thinking about and not really ready to completely cut ties with their partner. So you can work through all your issues, and it's even better if you do the legal separation, because then you can work through all of the issues you guys have, figure out on all the major issues what it is, how you guys want to separate, how you want to do everything, and you can do this in a way that makes sense for both of you, and that will make you both happy. If you go through a separation and you want to go further and you want to get a divorce, there's two options for you. You can either do an uncontested divorce or a contested divorce. Now, an uncontested divorce, like I said, if you had the separation before, or if you don't have any separation at all, but you agree on all of the major issues: childcare, income, debt, who's going to be getting what property, who's going to be living where, all of these things. How are you going to split everything, your entire lives? How is everything going to be split down the middle between the two of you? Then you can do an uncontested divorce, because then you both agree on all the major issues, you both want to be separated, you both want to be divorced, and you can file your paperwork. In New York, there is a 6-month waiting period. You have to have been living for 6 months separate and apart for the no-fault statute to apply to you. Other areas may be different, so I would definitely check to see if your area has any waiting period. The other option is a contested divorce. Now, this happens if at any point either of you do not agree on how you are dividing either children, childcare, if there is a question of whether or not someone's entitled to maintenance, or if someone's entitled to someone else's pension, what is or isn't separate property. If one party inherited money but commingled it, is that now no longer separate property? Any of these issues that may come up, that then requires a contested divorce. In that situation, I do suggest you speak to someone who's a marriage divorce attorney that can help you in that, because there are a lot of rights that you can be entitled to and you don't want to lose out on them. Plus, right now with coronavirus, a lot of these cases are being heard virtually. So a lot of these cases are being e-filed, where you file your case to an electronic court system. And a lot of these judges are holding conferences and hearings either by phone or by, in New York, it's Microsoft Teams that I've used for some of my court appearances. So it's either been by phone or by Microsoft Teams. So I would suggest you speak to someone. And if you are going to a contested divorce, or even if you're just doing an uncontested and you both have attorneys, which you can do as well, I also suggest that you speak to your spouse. How are you going to handle attorney interactions? If you can't go to see your attorney because of coronavirus, you can't go to their office, where can you go that you can speak to this attorney without your spouse listening in, without your spouse hearing you, where you both can have privacy to speak to your respective attorneys without the other party listening in, which is very important. You're entitled to have confidentiality, that your attorney is supposed to keep your information confidential to a degree, so you want to have that. But if you're talking to your attorney out in the living room and your spouse is in the kitchen and they're right next to each other, that might be difficult. So it's definitely important to speak to your spouse. How are you going to handle having an attorney conversation in the residence that you're both living in, assuming you're both still living in the marital residence? The other issue is if you're in a situation, let's say, where you feel unsafe or things are dangerous for you and you feel like you can't escape this, please reach out to one of the organizations that I will be linking below, or an organization in your area that can help you. They are specialized and they are trained to help people get out of domestic violence situations and help them go into a safer environment. So definitely, if that's something that's a concern, that you can't do any of the stuff that I've talked about with your partner in a way that's safe. I understand that there may be screaming or some yelling, but safety is very important. If this person may hurt you in any way, or you don't feel like you can have the conversations I've discussed with this person, please reach out to one of the organizations below and they can help you in that situation. Finally, obviously, there was a lot that I've discussed about. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of things going on. I know divorce is a really hard subject for a lot of people, and it's very difficult for a lot of people, but you have to make the choice that's best for you, and that's going to be best for your happiness in the future. So I hope that this was helpful, and if you have any other information or any questions, you can reach me at my email that's been linked in the description box, and leave a comment if there's any other questions you can have on my video. Thank you and have a great day.